Welcome to Home Education Matters, the weekly podcast supporting you on your home education journey. Hello, and today I'm joined for the first in our new series of episodes called A Journey into Home Education, and I'm going to be joined every month by Ash Ahmed. And we are going to be talking to each other once a month. And Ash is just starting out on her home education journey. She's going to be taking her son out of school starting this September. And we're going to be charting her journey and seeing how she's getting on every month, having a little check-in and hopefully providing a little bit of inspiration and support for those of you who are also in a similar kind of timescale where you're taking your child out of school this September. So hi, Ash, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your son and what sort of prompted you to land up where you are now this summer, just about to deregister.
Yeah, so it's a big decision to make, and I'm completely aware of that. And particularly being a teacher myself, so I'm a primary school teacher, trying to get out of teaching, but I've been a primary school teacher for a good 11 years now in the UK. And my son has always been mainstream educated. He's never really enjoyed school. He's never, even from the get-go, he's not really, kind of jumped into education and really enjoyed it. He's always kind of been on the periphery, I think. And I think a lot of that comes from kind of not being comfortable in the environment that he's in. He's kind of always 1 in 30 or 30 plus in his current class size. And he doesn't get that. He doesn't have that time or the opportunity to build that relationship with the adults in the classroom. I think it's always been the case. And I think it's just become more and more prominent, particularly post-COVID, where there was a big adjustment getting the children back into school. And he just really struggled and developed anxiety around going to school. And at that time, I didn't even think home educating would be an option. It's just not something that ever crossed my mind before. But as it was prolonged and his anxieties were just getting worse and worse, I started looking around, and I actually joined a couple of Facebook groups and got some more insight into home educating. And it's just something that as of last year, I thought we really need to look into this. This is an option for him. He will be able to actually enjoy learning again. And that's my biggest goal, is for him to actually have that love of learning back, which he hasn't had in so many years. So that's how we are where we are.
Did he enjoy lockdown then? Did you enjoy sort of learning from home and that kind of thing? Was it something that he relished?
I didn't enjoy it, I'm going to be completely honest, because I was doing all this stuff with school as well as kind of a blended learning through the online system, and then also kind of juggling his learning. And that's when I learned, and this is the thing that's been putting me off for such a long time, that he doesn't work around me. It's very difficult for me to get him to follow the instructions and tasks that are set by school. So that is actually my biggest fear even now. But he's a bit older he's a couple of years, after this is a couple of years post pandemic now. So I'm hoping he's matured a little bit, and the conversations that we've had, he seems a lot more engaged and willing to do it. In fact, something interesting, on Friday after they broke up, he decided just out of the blue that he wanted to set up a lemonade stand outside our house, and decided to he wanted to learn all about the business element of it and what profit is and all those sorts of stuff. So on that very Friday that he broke up from school, me and him sat together and we did a food hygiene certificate course thing online, which he really, I can't say he loved it, but he did it. He worked through it, and we've got the certificate. And then last week, which is our first week of the holidays, he's sat outside with a lemonade stand and a cake stand one day as well. And just his confidence was amazing. Shouting cupcakes and brownies across the street, which I wasn't expecting from him. And that was all from him. And I was thinking, I'm bossing this home educating thing. I haven't even started yet. So,
you're like 2 days in, and you're knocking it out of the park.
I was like, this is great. So yeah, I think the trick is going to be to engage him, of course, as you need to do anyway, but really find what he's interested in and follow that and try and let him run with it more than anything.
I was going to say that, when you were saying about how you struggled to get him to engage with the work that they sent home during lockdown, and I know that I'm friends with some schooled parents, and they had the same kind of thing. The work was really quite dull, and actually a lot of them just opted out and just didn't do it. And I would reassure you that like home education does not look like that. So you've got you don't have to worry quite so much. But and actually the lemonade stand, that is so interesting because that is a classic home ed thing. Like taking something like that they're interested in and then making it into like a whole project. Let's look at profit and loss, and it's really interesting, isn't it, how you can take something quite small that they're interested in and then they see the relevance of what they're learning.
100%, exactly. And because he's driven that as well, his motivation to actually do the DT stuff. So like, see, I'm still in teacher mode by kind of labeling the learning he's doing, but by cooking, by baking and learning the kind of different ratios of lemonade and the syrup of the lemonade and putting it in with the water and things like that. He's been really determined and wanting to work at that. Whereas I think if that was an activity set at school, obviously it wouldn't be able to be as engaging as that because it wouldn't be as practical. And I don't think he would have been as engaged in it. So yeah, I love that. I love that he was able to do that. And I love that I wasn't even trying. So I'm not under any illusion. I'm sure it's going to get a lot harder. There'll be times when it is difficult. But yeah, I was really impressed with our start.
So how old is your son?
He is 10, he'll be 11 in a few weeks. So he's one of the older ones. He would have been entering year 6. So he's just ended year 5, yeah.
So he would have been entering his final year of primary. And so you've taken him out just before the SATs hit.
I completely disagree with the SATs. Like even as a teacher, I just think they're horrible, especially as a teacher, I should say, because it puts an enormous amount of pressure on the children for something that really doesn't matter for the children. It's really to determine how the school's doing. So yeah, I don't think that's fair to put that pressure on the children. And he was actually quite lucky because even though he did all the studying up until the SATs, it was when COVID, the first lockdown happened, that he was the first year group that didn't do SATs that year. So he missed those as well. But
they have SATs earlier on then, not just in year 6.
End of key stage 1 and then end of key stage 2. So when you're kind of 7 are the first ones.
Wow.
It's
brutal.
It is brutal because it changes your relationship with school, I think. My stepson, who's also the same age as my son, they're both about to enter year 6. So it'll be interesting to see how their journeys differ because he's staying in a mainstream school. But he developed school-based anxiety in year 2, which is when they do the SATs, because the focus of learning went from kind of year 1, where it was a lot of, learning through play and much more how you would want learning to be, I suppose, as a teacher, to kind of sitting down and having to study for the SATs and doing practice questions again and again and again. And yeah, that really brought out a really negative reaction to school for him as well. So yeah, it is unfair, I think, putting all that pressure on children when they're so young for something that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things for their personal journeys. It is difficult. So I'm glad that he's not doing the SATs this year.
Do you think that's one reason why your son feels a bit kind of ostracized from his learning at the moment, that because of the sort of learn to test that happened really quite early? I mean, that's like second year of school, right? Do you feel that that's maybe one reason why he's lost his natural connection to learning, or is it just because of the really big class sizes as well?
I think the amount of pressure that's put on the children from the teachers inadvertently, I'm not saying, I'm a teacher, I have lots of teacher friends, and they are normal human beings who are lovely. And I know that you were a teacher in your past as well, and so I'm sure you can vouch for that as well. But I think the school that he's in an outstanding school. They haven't been Ofsteded in a while, but at the moment it's an outstanding school. And the pressure to stay outstanding, I think, is quite high in the school. So for example, if my son completed a piece of work that wasn't neat enough or tidy enough, he's had his work torn out of his book before and thrown away in front of him. So,
oh my God,
there are things like that have happened. This is his version of events. I've never confronted the teacher or anything at that point, but but he's very wet. So he developed a couple of years ago. He developed a case of, if he's become quite a perfectionist. So if he knows that it's going to take. If it's not going to be perfect, he won't even get started on the work. So that's going to be a really difficult habit for me to unpick and kind of help him see that it's okay to have a go, and it doesn't have to be perfect the first time you do it, and that's part of the learning. But he is the pressure that was put on him, because of the pressure that's probably put on the teachers, is quite huge, and it has really impacted his personality and his love for learning, or lack thereof, I should say.
Perfectionism is such a thing, I think, particularly in that age. Boys as well. Boys as well at that age, they do seem to go through a phase of perfectionism, and I don't think it's unique to school. Actually, I think because my son, who has never been at school, he certainly went through a stage of sort of really, really wanting everything to be perfect. And what we did was, I sensed it was happening, and so I thought, oh, I'm going to get in quickly here. And so I would sit with them, and I would print out, like I was a big fan of making my own resources because it saved me lots of money, and it meant I could incorporate their own interests into it. So like they were into Harry Potter at that kind of age, so I would put like lots of Harry Potter references and images and stuff on it, and then I printed it out. And what I would do is I print out 3 copies, so one for both my children, one for me. And then I would do this kind of goofy thing where I would like deliberately make loads of mistakes and like doodle on my paper, really like smudge stuff. And I would do it really just to emphasize, like, it's okay to be messy. It's okay to make mistakes and cross stuff out. It's okay to, like, draw pictures of the sun and flowers and stuff like that. And I did that really for about 2 months, and it was really fun because they found it hilarious that their mother was this like really bad student who was really goofing around. But also, I think it helped them to realize that like a piece of paper doesn't have to be perfect, right? And I think at school, you're really taught that you have to hand it in and it has to look nice. So I would like tear off bits of the paper and stuff. And honestly, it really helped the perfectionism because I think they thought, well, if their mother's doing it, it must be okay to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a safe space to be able to explore and be able to, find your own way of completing a task. Whereas I think, yeah, it can be quite prescriptive in schools where you have to do things in a certain way. And if it's not good enough, you have to stay in at lunchtime and do it again, which we've had lots of times and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. I think, and that's why I want him to have a kind of a safe environment where he can learn and make mistakes, because that's all part of life.
And do you have a sense of what sort of approach you're going to take? I mean, do you sort of, I know there's like a million different ways to home educate, but do you have a kind of sense of how it's going to work for you and your son?
So I think knowing him and knowing what he kind of wants, so he hasn't 100% got a career that he wants to go into, but I know that he wants to, the ones that he's named or shown an interest in are things that are kind of quite academic careers. So I think he wants to continue. He will want to take his GCSEs at the moment. This might change, but at the moment he will want to take GCSEs, and I think he'd be good at them, given the right kind of environment to be able to learn and study for them. So I think we're going to take quite an academic approach in respect to giving him his maths and his English as the way it's, sorry, Anna, can you hear the screaming in the background? That's my daughter, if you can hear that.
I think after years of motherhood, I just block it out now. I don't hear children's noises.
Time, and now she's bouncing off the walls. So I think for Ismael, I think I really want him to be able to access maths and English as normal. So initially I was going to get tutors for maths and English, and then kind of do the rest of the curriculum. And I say curriculum thinking about the national curriculum, but other things like science, history, and all things kind of led by his interests and me helping him with those, and giving him projects to do. But things have changed in the sense that it's really expensive to have those tutors, 5 times a week for 2 subjects, etc. So
wow, you don't need that much. That's a lot.
And I know, and that's the other thing as well. So I know that you don't have to have that massive amount either, because I'm thinking about it from a school point of view.
Because it's 1-to-1, so it's so much more effective.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. But I just wanted to cover myself and make sure that I was able to, whatever I started with, I was able to give that consistency throughout. So I think that's going to have gone out the window a little bit. And I think what I'm going to do is work, and I've been working on plans for him myself. So with maths and English, looking at his weakness, because his school report came back and it said that, even though I had no indication of this prior to this, but he hasn't met the age-related expectations for maths, just missed them by a little bit. So I know that he's going to, and I think with him it's a lot of confidence that's missing. So I just want to work with him on the maths and helping him build that confidence. But and same with English as well. He's not a big fan of English. He doesn't enjoy reading, and he doesn't enjoy. He's at the age where I see it in my classrooms as well. A lot of, and this is not stereotypical, but a lot of boys kind of switch off to writing and reading because they just don't enjoy it. It's something they'd rather do something else. But I want to kind of link the reading and the learning that we're doing to the topics that he's very interested in, because he's listed all the topics that he wants to look at this year, which I'm really excited about looking at as well. So linking them in and maybe giving him opportunities to kind of access elements of the national curriculum through that.
Yes, nice. So Yeah, he's given you a list of things that he wants to do as like little projects, and then you're going to incorporate the learning into those.
Yeah, so things that he's always wanted to learn about that he hasn't learned about in school. So World War One being the first one that we're doing, and then I've tried to link the English and all the other things that we're doing around that as well. To be honest, it's a lot. I know it doesn't have to be this way. And when I was reading up on it, one of the things that on home educating, one of the things that really attracted me to it was that you don't have to have lesson plans, and you don't have to have a certain way that you do it. You can do it the way that you want to do and what works best for your family. But it has been a lot of work, just because I want to have something solid that I've got to start from. I'm really concerned about him not being interested in learning, and then me not having the appropriate resources at the right time, kind of when it comes to September, and then having to plan at that time. So I'm very aware of wanting to have everything kind of planned. I know this is a bit of a control thing from my point of view as well. I see that, and I need to have that flexibility that things might not go that way. But I have spent quite a lot of time just planning those resources and making sure that he's got something that he can at least get on with at the beginning of the year. So yeah, I think it's quite structured at the moment. That's what we're looking at.
I think when you first start home educating, you like to have everything like massively planned and prepped, and you buy lots of resources and you do lots of planning, because obviously it's like a little scaffold that supports you. And it's very scary to kind of launch into home education without any kind of planning. I mean, it's absolutely possible to do, but you have to be quite a strong individual to do that. So I totally get why you would sort of plan all that and have that plan. I would say you don't need to follow the national curriculum. I think that's like death to fun. Have you thought about the deregistration process? Are you going to have you deregistered? Are you going to deregister? How are you going to work that?
So I was planning on deregistering on the first day back at school, or maybe they did the night before, just because I've got the email ready to go, but I just wanted to enjoy the summer holidays, and I didn't want to have to kind of be on the lookout for any kind of contact from the LA at that time. So I think we've got the email drafted. It's a template that I found on one of the groups, in the Facebook groups, and I'm going to just use that to send at the time, and then just wait to see what comes back. I suppose hopefully it'll be quite simple and straightforward, but I know it's not always that way.
Do you know what to expect from the LA? Do you know your rights and all that kind of thing?
So I've read up on what you're supposed to be doing and what my responsibility will be, which seems fine. It seems absolutely fine. And I think more so it's, I think the process of, will the school accept it, and will it be a failure to deregister? Because I don't think it's a common thing. I mean, it probably is more common than you think, but I can't imagine that many children within this school deregistering. I don't think it's a common process. So I think they might be surprised by the fact that I've deregistered, and then they might want to do the whole kind of calling me in for a meeting and things like that, which I know that I don't have to. I don't have to do that at all. I can just, say that this is a decision that I've made, and so on. But yeah, there is a bit of anxiety around what's going to happen going forward, and will it be a straightforward process or not? But I think I feel well equipped, in the sense that I feel like my knowledge on it is good enough to be able to handle what happens. And I know that there's support in the Facebook groups as well for situations that aren't kind of completely typical.
I think what tends to help make it feel more simple and straightforward is if you remind yourself that when you're deregistering, you're not asking permission to take your child from school. It's not a request. You're just literally informing them like you would inform them of anything. It's just, you're just saying, this is now what's going to be happening. And then that's it. You don't have, when it comes to school, you don't have to have any other contact with the school. You don't need to agree to any meetings, have any phone calls. You don't have to explain any reasons. There's nothing you have to do. When it comes to the LA or the local authority, you know your rights for that. So come on, I'm going to quiz you now then, Ash. Tell me what you have to do for the LA. Come on then.
When they contact me, I'm not going to contact them, am I? They're going to contact me.
Correct. Well done. Gold star.
Thank you. I feel like I'm being tested now.
Yeah. It's nice for me to test a teacher.
I know, it feels horrible. When they're going to contact me, they will probably ask me, I think most likely, to tell me what my plans are. I imagine that's what's going to be the first kind of contact that I have with them, most likely. And at that time, I don't have to give them any lesson plans or anything like that. It's better for me to give them a retrospective report, or give them a date where I can provide them with a report. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, That's the plan. And yeah, and to also to say that I want to keep it all in writing, so there's a paper trail of any kind of communication that's going back and forth, which I know you don't have to do, but I think for the sake of an easy life, I think that's probably the best thing to do.
I think that's top of the class. That's very good. So, so yeah, exactly. So you don't need to provide any prospective learning ideas. You don't need to say this is what we're going to be doing over the next year. In fact, we tends to be not recommended, because then they can hold you to it in the next year and be like, did you do those things you said you were going to do? And you don't have to provide any evidence of any work either. So sometimes they ask for samples of work. You don't need to provide that. And also you can keep it all in writing. You don't need to have any phone calls. You don't need to, they shouldn't be doorstepping you, turning up at your house. And only once a year report.
Yeah.
So once you provide it, they may say, oh, we're being contacted in 6 months, and you'll be like, nope, you're being contacted in a year. And so far, as things stand at the moment, that they're the rules for England. So that's very good, Ash. That is very impressive. I'm glad you armed with your rights.
I'm prepared, yeah.
So tell me one thing you're really looking forward to, and one thing you're a bit nervous about for your, like, the first few weeks before we chat again at the end of September.
So I'll start with what I'm nervous about. So I'm really nervous about my son saying to me that, no, actually, I don't want to do this anymore, or I don't want to do this at all, or I just want to sleep in bed all day. And I know I've read about the process of kind of deschooling. Is it deschooling? Not deschooling. Different deschooling, where children take a bit of time to just recover from the trauma of school, and I understand that. But I would be worried. I guess I'm a bit worried that, because, as you can tell probably from my conversation already, I'm a bit of a control freak with things like this. I'm worried that it would be a slippery slope, and then we'd never get to it. But my understanding of deschooling is that at some point he will then want to naturally learn as I want him to learn. So I guess that process is a bit worrying, or the process of him kind of not wanting to engage in any kind of learning at all. Although learning happens all the time, and there are opportunities for it, and I understand that, but I'm a bit nervous about my plans being wasted, I suppose, and all the hours of work that I've done.
I'm afraid that probably will happen. And unfortunately, we've all been there. I have got bookshelves lined with things that I've bought and I've spent hard-earned cash on, and maybe my children got 2 pages in, and I've got like whole plans that I've had to throw out. It is just unfortunately one of those things.
A coded folder with all the subjects and all the wonderful things we're going to be doing. And yeah, no, I understand. I know that there needs to be more flexibility for me, but I guess I'm a little bit anxious about how it's going to look, because we've not done it before, not since COVID. And COVID, I wouldn't say was proper home educating anyway. It was homeschooling, wasn't it? So it was a bit different. So I guess not knowing what our day is going to look like. I know from my point of view, I'm working, my work situation is changing a little bit. I'm doing some freelancing at the moment, so I'm going to fit that in with my 2-year-old and his thing. So I'm a bit nervous about that. But I think once we get into a rhythm, it will work. I hope it will work. And the thing that I'm most looking forward to, so we as I said, he wants to look at World War I as his first topic. So we both sat down and booked the National War, what is it called in London?
Imperial War Museum.
Imperial War Museum. We booked he loves booking flights and things like that. I know that's quite he doesn't get to just book them without permission, but he likes looking at flights and all these sorts of things. So traveling is one of his interests. So he booked the train tickets for us to go down there, and he helped book the tickets for the museum and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to being able to do things on a Monday, like not even on a school day, and just being able to go and take him somewhere and then have that as part of our learning, and giving him those opportunities that he wouldn't have at school.
And it's so quiet as well. It's so lovely, because you go to these places and they're really quiet because all the children are in school. And especially if you go on like kind of a rainy Tuesday and things like that, you can have the Imperial War Museum to yourself. It's glorious. The cafe is very good at the Imperial War Museum.
Oh, is it? I'll make it. Yeah, we like cafes, yeah.
Something to look forward to. I love the Imperial War Museum. Actually, if you're doing World War I, are you going to be looking at any World War I poetry? Because that's a good chance to get some literature in there.
Because we've got, not too far from us, we've got the National Memorial Arboretum as well, which has got all the different memorials, and there's some poems that work really well with some of the different monuments they've got there. So I'm definitely going to be, and I've actually taught that before in year 5, year 6. So that's kind of my area of expertise, and I really enjoyed doing that anyway. So I think he will really enjoy that and get a lot out of that as well. So definitely poetry would be a good one to get in there.
I can't see him not engaging with this learning. I want to engage with this learning. It sounds great fun.
I hope so.
Well, I look forward, and I'm sure our listeners will look forward to seeing how you're getting on by the end of September, because when next time we chat, you'll be a couple of weeks in. So you'll have been to your Imperial War Museum and you'll have your color-coded folders and all your planning.
Yes.
Well, we're looking forward very much to catching up with you every month, Ash, and finding out how you and Ismael are doing. And it's been lovely chatting, and I will see you on the other side, on the dark side.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Ash. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Home Education Matters podcast. See you at the next one. Have a lovely day.